Today I'm making homemade barbecue sauce. Hi everybody, thanks so much for stopping by the homestead. My name is Sarah from Living Traditions Homestead, and today we're going to make some homemade barbecue sauce, and we're going to can it so that we can use it the rest of the year. Now, just recently I made a video about, yes, you can freeze your whole tomatoes. Just throw them right into the freezer from the garden and then pull them out, and I showed you how to thaw them out and make tomato sauce. I am going to put a link to that video right here. So this is some of the end result of me pulling them out and thawing them out and turning them into tomato sauce. It has made the most beautiful, beautiful tomato sauce, or tomato puree, whatever you want to call it. And I figured it is a perfect time and perfect opportunity for me to make homemade barbecue sauce. Now, our family has never been able to make homemade barbecue sauce and can it for the future because we've never had this great of a tomato harvest. I'm going to put a video up here that will show you just how wonderful of a tomato crop we had this year. Before we get started, I want to just share with you that this recipe for barbecue sauce is coming from my very favorite canning book. It is called The Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving, and it has 400 recipes in it. I've had this for several years. I use it for almost every canning recipe I use. I'm going to put a link to this down in the description to Amazon, and if you want to pick one up or check it out, go ahead and use that link. We would sure appreciate it. So I'm just using a standard barbecue sauce recipe. There are a couple others in here that we may try in the future, but I just want to get started on something that's pretty basic. So the first ingredient is obviously tomato sauce. We're going to be using 16 cups of tomato sauce, and it is just beautiful. It's just this kind. This is extra that I'll be using later, but it is just beautiful. I'm going to move this out of the way. So 16 cups of the tomato sauce. And then we're going to move on to onions. We're going to chop very finely 2 cups of onions and put it in here. Now, I also want to share with you a secret. This vegetable chopper, onion chopper or whatever, has saved us so much time. We have actually picked up, several of these at thrift stores. You can look in your thrift store too, but you can also find this on Amazon, and we'll put a link to that below as well. But it comes with two separate sizes of chopping, a smaller and a larger, and today I'm going to be using the smaller blades. And this will just help my chopping of the onions go really fast. You can also get your aggressions out. Another nice feature of these is that there are measuring lines on here, so you don't have to transfer them from inside here to a measuring cup. And those onions are getting to me. So 2 medium onions ended up being about 2 cups of onions, and so now I just need to add them into there and move on. The next step is garlic. We're going to add 3 big cloves of garlic. We're going to smash them, and then we're going to mince them and add them right to the pot. Okay, the 2 seasonings that we're going to add at this point are celery seed and crushed red peppers. We need 1 tablespoon of both. is to stir this and then get it on the stove. We need to heat this until it's boiling, and then we need to cover it, lower the heat on low, and let it simmer and boil very lightly for 30 minutes so that the onions and the garlic can soften. Well, the barbecue sauce came to a boil and then it simmered for 30 minutes with the cover on. Now when I was bringing it to a boil, I had it on high heat and I was stirring it constantly to make sure that it didn't stick on the bottom of the pan. The next step is to blend it up. Now you could use a food mill for this, you could use your blender for this, but I'm going to use my immersion blender because it's super fast and it does make a lot of dishes. Basically, you're just trying to chop up the onion pieces and the garlic pieces to make it all one smooth mixture. If you're using an immersion blender, make sure that you only turn it on when it's inside the liquid. Otherwise, it'll splatter all over and this is super hot. Okay, the next step is to add the rest of the ingredients. We are going to be adding 1½ cups of loosely packed brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of salt. Now we use pink Himalayan salt and we ordered this in bulk on Amazon. I will make sure that we put the link for this down below. It is so much less expensive if you order it in bulk on Amazon. 1, 2, we are going to add nutmeg. We are going to add 1½ tablespoons of nutmeg. And we are going to be adding ground mustard, ground yellow mustard. We're going to add a tablespoon of that. We're adding ground ginger, 1 teaspoon. And also 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now this recipe calls for 1/3 cup of lemon juice, but I don't have any lemon juice, so I'm going to substitute citric acid. And I will be using 1 1/3 teaspoon of citric acid. The last thing is 1 cup of white vinegar. Now I'm going to mix this all up, and then it needs to go back onto the stove and it needs to come back up to a boil. Now if you had been starting with tomatoes rather than tomato sauce or tomato puree, you'll want to bring it up to a boil and then boil it down to the consistency that you wanted. But because I already started with the puree, I won't have to boil it down very long at all, or at all. So I'm for sure going to bring this up to a boil like it requires, and then I'm going to check the consistency, and it's very possible that I will be able to just can it right away. And it's time to can it. So I've decided to can the barbecue sauce in half-pint jars rather than pint-sized jars. We just don't use a whole lot of barbecue sauce at one time, and I would much rather have to open 2 jars and use everything than open, a pint-sized jar, only use half, and then the rest of it goes bad in the refrigerator. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Now, because it's getting colder out, I actually have filled all of my jars with hot water to just warm up the glass a little bit. Normally I don't do that, especially in the summer, because the temperature in the house is warm enough that I don't have to worry about the glass cracking. So in this situation, with this recipe, you fill up your jars until there's 1/2 of an inch of head space. Now, I want to ask you guys something, and I'd appreciate some feedback in the comments section. I've been considering creating a series, a YouTube series for our homestead that would be like Canning 101 or beginning canning. And I wanted to see if any of you are interested in that. We've done a couple how-to series on other subjects, on how to raise meat rabbits and how to raise Cornish cross meat chickens, and we had some really great feedback from people that they really enjoyed that and that they learned a lot. And so I've been considering, like I said, of doing the same thing with canning. So if you would let me know if you think that's a great idea, if you think you would learn from that, I would really appreciate that. I would go over not only water bath canning, but I would also go over pressure canning, and it would be probably an extensive playlist of videos. Okay, so let me know. So I have the barbecue sauce in here. I checked to see that it was a 1/2 inch from the top. I wiped off the rim to make sure it was clean, and now it's time to put on my lid. They have been soaking in hot water, and the ring. So I'm just going to tighten that, what's called finger tight, and put that in my water bath canner. The water has already been preheated, so I'm going to continue doing that until I have all of them filled, and then I'm going to process these for 20 minutes. And when I'm all finished, I'll come back and I'll show you the end product. I'm so excited to see how many we're going to get. Well, that is a good job done. I ended up with 18 half pints of barbecue sauce. Next up, maybe ketchup. I'll have to give that a try. You guys, thanks so much for stopping by the homestead today. I really appreciated it. If you are not a subscriber yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button below. You know, one thing we haven't talked about is our Etsy store. If you haven't checked that out, check us out on Etsy. Our link is below in the description. And if you have comments or questions, go ahead and leave that in the comment section below. Until next time, guys, thanks so much for stopping by the homestead. Take care, and God